Have you ever woken up one morning and thought, oh my gosh, my body is feeling so much older today? And not in the good ways, meaning you have more aches and pains than you normally have. This is something that so many people experience, and there is an underlying reason that most people don't know about. On this week's episode of the Exercises Health Podcast, we're going to identify for you what that reason is and what exactly you can do about it. We're going to cue our introduction and we're going to dive right into this conversation. Hey, welcome back, exercisers, to the Exercise is Health Podcast, brought to you by Exercise for Life Studios and Muscle Activation Schaumburg, where we believe that your health is your most valuable asset. And the single best thing that you can do to both boost and protect this asset is exercise. Specifically, exercise is geared towards building the health and function of your muscles. We're your hosts, Charlie
and Julie.
And we are back. After doing a number of pre-recorded episodes throughout the month of July, we are back recording a brand new one for you today. And we have our little daughter with us. So if you see us, if you're watching on YouTube and you see our attention diverting from the camera, if you hear something going on in the background, that's what's going on here. But we're really excited to talk with you about this topic today because it's something that across the board, so many people worldwide experience. And it's this feeling of their body getting older. But here's the thing. What people are telling you about it and what people are telling you to do about it is missing one of the primary drivers as to why you may be feeling older. We want to identify for you what that driver is today and tell you what you can do about it.
That's right. I remember, Charlie, in, 6th or 7th grade, we were reading, when they give you all these boring books to read. I don't know if 6th and 7th graders still read boring books. But I remember
I think a lot of 6th and 7th graders just think all books are boring.
Every book is boring. Anyways, I remember we were learning about this concept that we were seeing in books, and my English teacher was saying, so that character is called a scapegoat, which is someone that you're going to blame the issue, right? The main character has an issue, and the story is going to blame the scapegoat, whether it's a person or whether it's a scenario or whatever. But age is like a scapegoat, and we want to blame all of the junk that we feel, like the tightness, the achiness, the lack of strength, all the symptoms of aging on aging. And it is such a common scapegoat that it's almost acceptable. Like people will come into our studio and say, oh, it's just getting old. Oh, just wait till you get 40, or get to 40. Oh, just wait till you're 60s. Oh, just wait until, you've ran 5 marathons and you're 70, right? It's always this scapegoat of the age is always the scapegoat. It's something that makes us feel good and validated that we can blame on age. And now there are things that happen as you age, but I don't think age gets all the mischievous credit that we give it. And after this podcast, I hope you guys, I know you guys will have some tangible things that you can be doing to make sure that, yes, we're all going to age, but that you age in the best way possible, that you never have to use that scapegoat of aging.
Exactly. All right. So, Julie, in your experience, would you say that as people get older, their strength generally goes up or down?
Down.
Okay. Would you say that in your experience, you see that people become more or less mobile as they get older?
Less.
Okay. Do you see that their aches or pains and tightness kind of generally increase or decrease?
Increase.
Yep. And what about their energy? Do they generally get more energy or less energy?
Less.
Yeah. And so then we relate that to fatigue. Would you say they get more fatigue or less fatigue?
More fatigue.
Easier throughout the day. Yeah. And so these are some very common benchmarks or measurements, we could say, of I'm feeling older. Like, well, what do you mean you're feeling older? It's like, well, I'm doing some things I used to do and they just feel way harder. Like I just feel way weaker. I don't feel like I have the energy. I feel like I fatigue faster. I got these aches and pains I never used to have before. And these are the things. You all right, sweetheart?
You okay, baby?
Okay, we're back at it. And
our 5-year-old just fell out of her chair.
And these are the things that we are told are normal with aging. We see within our friends that are very common with aging, but we also can start to see some data points where that's not always the case, where people aren't always. Now, I'm not going to say like people continue to get stronger and stronger and stronger from their 20s, into their 80s until, their very last day. But the amount of decline that people experience is greatly different across the board. And there is something that is contributing to what people, to what people are experiencing. And people who experience a more rapid decline, this thing that is contributing is often what we see much more present with them than with people who are experiencing a less rapid decline, not losing their strength and mobility as fast, not experiencing as many aches and pains, not experiencing that decrease in energy, that increased fatigue throughout the day. And so what is that thing? That thing that is contributing to all of that, that people who are experiencing the decline more rapidly, is muscle inhibition. And that is the thing that most people are unaware of, but is a huge driver to why they are likely feeling old.
And you know what? Muscle inhibition is also the main driver for people that the general population would label as young, feeling old.
Yes.
And
that's a great point.
Especially if you're young, I don't know what age you decide is young, that's an arbitrary number, but maybe people in their 20s or 30s. There are plenty of people in their 20s and 30s that don't move well, that are achy, that are not feeling well. And I guess we could, those people probably wake up feeling old, but we wouldn't label that oftentimes as, oh, I'm just getting old. But it's the same symptoms and same cause. Another great way to think about this, which is awesome when we're thinking about, hey, there's a cause that's not age, because you can't control how old you are, right? But you can control how your body's functioning and feeling, right? And so in a way, it's kind of cool because it makes this thing of feeling old potentially temporary, right? And changeable. An example that I'm experiencing right now, we just took a break because we just had a brand new baby. And right now, my body is in a place of, I've been in a lot of muscle inhibition for a long time to make space for someone inhabiting my thorax area, right? And so even just last night, I was bending over, picking up, my less than 10-pound newborn, and my back was really feeling weak and bothered and tight and achy and almost like I had to catch myself. And if I didn't just have a baby and know about muscle inhibition, I would probably say, yeah, Julie, you're in your mid-30s now, you're getting old, right? But I know that it's actually something that's changeable and it's something that is conditional, right? It's conditional to the environment that you put your body in. It's conditional to the actions that you're taking with your muscles and your health. And it's conditional to the entire, I want to say I already said environment, but your entire lifestyle around how you're treating your body. So if you change your lifestyle and what you're doing with your body, you can change how your muscles are feeling, and then maybe you won't have to blame your age so much for all your stuff.
Exactly. Okay, so you might be hearing this thinking, okay, that's great, but what is muscle inhibition? So let's talk about that. Very simply, muscle inhibition is when your muscles are not working the way they're supposed to work. They're literally inhibited from operating what they are supposed to do. What are they supposed to do, you might ask? They're supposed to contract. They're supposed to generate tension. They're supposed to have strength. And so when they are not able to contract, when they are not able to generate tension efficiently, when they're not able to have that strength, then we start to see this whole cascade of effects happen, okay, which we're going to get into. But why does this happen? Well, there's a few main reasons why this happens. The very general blanket, kind of covers every scenario statement of why this happens is there is something going on that is just too much for your body, okay? There's too much stress happening to your body. There's been a trauma that was too much force for your body. There's too much using your body. You would think, oh, muscle inhibition, getting old, it must just be an old person thing. But like you were saying, Julie, no, people in their 20s, people in their 30s, high school athletes that are, really, really, sometimes the practice schedules of these high school athletes is just absolutely insane to me, in my opinion. I'm like, what are y'all doing? And so what do they start developing? They start developing this muscle inhibition. They start developing these aches and pains as if they are getting older, but they're 17, 18 years old, okay? So overuse, And then on the flip side of that is also disuse, okay? Not using your body enough. We think, okay, well, why is my body feeling this way? I haven't done anything. And that's exactly the issue. You haven't done anything to tell your body, oh, no, we need to keep that strength, that mobility, that energy that we had when we were in our teens and 20s and early 30s. And now you're in your 50s, 60s, 70s or beyond. And because you haven't done anything to tell your body, to signal to your body that it needs to keep that, your body's like, yeah, we don't need to do that. And so this muscle inhibition starts to develop. And so again, muscle inhibition is just like essentially as it sounds, if something is inhibited, you could say it is like prohibited or prevented or stopped or dampened down or whatever it is. It's the function of the muscles is not where it's supposed to be. It is being stopped from the muscles are being stopped from working the way they are supposed to work. And we start to see once this happens, there is this cascade of negative effects, this perpetual downward spiral that so many people end up going through.
Yeah, this downward spiral, I don't know why I want to like label it as like a good thing, but like your body tries to solve this problem, which I think is a good thing, right? So you've done something or you haven't done something, meaning remember we said you can have it like too much of something or you haven't done enough with your body. And so now you have this muscle inhibition. So it's muscles that aren't working so hot, right? And it can even be normal daily tasks. You're like, but Julie, I just went out and mowed my lawn. I've been mowing my lawn for 50 years. I'm 70 years old now. Well, that means that your lifestyle of having mowing your lawn in your life is now getting to be too taxing. That's a sign saying like, hey, your body is, like the strength of your body is lowering below your daily tasks. So it's a sign, hey, we need to do something about this, right? Or you just accept it and continue to blame age. So anyways, the good thing is that your body tries to deal with these muscle inhibitions. They don't just sit there and your body doesn't respond. The bad thing is that the thing your body's going to do to resolve this muscle inhibition or to deal with it is stuff we don't usually like in terms of like the human experience. So when muscles don't work as well, we do something called compensation, which temporarily is good because it still gets you from A to B. It still lets your body function. Long term is not so comfortable. When we compensate, that's when we feel tight muscles. That's when we feel overworked muscles. That's when we feel that achy muscles. That's when we feel discomfort. It's your body saying like, hey, we're doing the best we can here, but we're working with, team Z, right? Like our last resort here. So here's the thing. Our bodies are going to want to protect these muscles that are not functioning well. That protection, which in the big picture is like your body saying like, hey, I'd rather be protected and uncomfortable than you be comfortable and unprotected. But we don't like that experience. And honestly, the compensation is what is generally our signal to our bodies or our brains to say something's not right. We generally don't feel inhibited muscles because they're kind of turned off. What we feel is the tight muscles that are protecting the inhibited muscles. We feel the tight muscles that are overworking because of the inhibited muscles. We feel all the achiness because there are muscles doing the job of other muscles that aren't doing their job. It's like half of your muscles are working overtime and half of your muscles are not doing anything. So that's where the issue arises. But I guess we can label this good or bad or whatever you want to think. But it's our biggest and most clear way to know, hey, there are muscles in your body that are inhibited that need to get addressed. Because again, we don't usually feel the inhibited muscles. We feel the compensation that happens because of inhibited muscles. So that's kind of the first cascade, which again, some ways is good, some ways is not so hot.
Right, exactly. So you have inhibited muscles that then force your body to compensate. So you can keep doing the things that you want to do. But as that compensation progresses, where your body is using other muscles to make up for the muscles that aren't doing enough, those muscles that are doing more, they start to become overworked. And like we said earlier, overuse is one of the things that then leads to muscle inhibition. So now these muscles that are overworking, and we're not really talking overworking for days. I mean, it may be for days depending on the intensity of what you're doing, but for most people, it's like years or decades where these muscles have been overworking, and then they become inhibited, which then leads to more compensation, which more muscles have to overwork, which more muscles become inhibited. And this is this perpetual downward spiral until people get to the point where literally just doing the stuff throughout their day is too much stress for their body. And that is really when people hit this slope, like the slope becomes very, very steep of, wow, I don't know what happened over the last 3 years. I don't know what happened over the last 6 months. I don't know what's happened, over whatever time span, but I'm really feeling old now. And it's just because the amount of inhibition that has been in their body for the length of time, leading to more and more compensation, more muscles overworking, those muscles becoming inhibited, more compensation, more muscles overworking, those muscles becoming inhibited. And it just becomes this downward spiral, this cascade of just kind of negative effects of aches and pains and tightness and feeling of losing strength, feeling of losing mobility, getting more fatigued, easier and easier, losing energy, okay? And when you hit that point where your daily life becomes too much stress for your body, that's where a lot of people, again, get to this place of, I don't know what I'm doing, but it's like every single day I'm getting worse. So the question is, what can you do to stop this in its tracks? What can you do to start to flatten out that slope, start to that downward slope? What can you do to actually start to maybe make it creep back up so you're not losing strength and energy and mobility and getting tight at such a rapid pace? And the thing that we have found across the board to work best to directly prevent and directly address muscle inhibition is muscle activation techniques, MAT. Like hands down, we have seen that not only does the MAT process help to address muscle inhibition that's present, as you progress through the MAT process, your body actually becomes more tolerant of stress. And so in a way, it helps to prevent the onset of muscle inhibition as easily as it was when you first started MAT, okay? And that is one of the most powerful aspects of the whole entire MAT process, is not just addressing what's going on here and now, but actually building your entire body's tolerance up to be able to do more stuff without it having taken without it having to take the negative effects that it was on your body before you started MAT.
You know, what I've noticed a lot of times when we have clients coming in, especially MAT is not that common, so people have tried everything else first. They've got their routine. And a lot of times your muscle routine is kind of keeping you maintained and allowing that downward slope to continue, but just at a slower pace. So a lot of people will be like, yeah, if I can get in for, a massage every other week, then I'm good to go, but I have to keep that maintenance. Or if I can get in and make sure I do my stretches or my icing routine or whatever it is, every morning, then I can handle my day. And then every once in a while I have my flare-ups. But what we've noticed with MAT is because no other modality looks for muscle inhibition, is that when we start addressing muscle inhibition,
At least not with the detail that MAT does.
Right. We find that now your daily activities where you think like, hey, if I mow my lawn, it should be working my muscles. It should be a great workout. I shouldn't be feeling bad after. Or, it should be making me stronger or keeping me strong. We start noticing that people using their daily activities, they're getting stronger from doing them versus them breaking them down. Or when they go to their gym sessions, they go to exercise, it's making them stronger versus breaking them down. Because what happens is that when we have these muscle inhibition, and then muscles, compensating for them, is that we keep working the compensating muscles. And that just contributes more to the overworkedness of those muscles. So we just need to make sure muscles are working across the board before we go and work them. And that's why when people start doing MAT, we notice that there's definitely a flattening of the curve with a downward slope. And then oftentimes there's an increase because many people have never had their muscles assessed in this way before. And so it's like the first time that they're like, wow, all my muscles are working, or more than they were before my session or before my, my experience here with MAT. So we do notice that, and it's really cool. And then you really get stronger overall because there are more muscles available. There's less compensation happening because your body's always going to want to protect those inhibited muscles. So it's really impossible to have inhibited muscles and not have that compensation. So we find that things get much more balanced out once you start getting muscle activation techniques.
Absolutely. A lot of people think, well, can't I just go and, work out on my own and have it take care of itself? And the answer is exercise is definitely part of the equation, but for a lot of people, it's not necessarily the first step. Remember, when you get to that point of that downward spiral where just what you're doing throughout your day is too much stress for your body and your body is just getting gradually worse and worse and worse, what a lot of people find is, like, let's say it's not even like a systemic thing where just like systemically they're feeling worse and worse and worse. Let's say it's like a knee thing or whatever, okay? They find that, hey, when they do exercise for it, their knee feels worse. And so in that kind of like isolated example, that is to me a telltale sign that it's like, okay, well, the muscle inhibition, at least throughout that area and likely throughout other areas of your body, has gotten to the point where there's enough stuff compensating that when you try to add the stress of exercise to it, it gets so many muscles overworking and then inhibited and then furthering the compensation. And so it is that kind of steep downward spiral in that area. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking, okay, well, every time that, I try to exercise, I actually feel worse. Every time that, I try to go and work out or just to like be more active throughout my day, I actually feel worse. Then what I'm hearing you say, and the switch I want you to make in your brain is, okay, my first step actually needs to be MAT. I need to get this muscle inhibition addressed. So as it's starting to get addressed and my tolerance for activity and everything goes up, then I can start to exercise more. Then I can start to lift more often. Then I can start to do more cardio and everything like that and actually get the benefits from doing those things without it further breaking down my body. So that is kind of the relationship that MAT can play when trying to get back into exercise and you're feeling these things going on. Because I know a lot of people are like, well, can I just go work out on my own? And working out is definitely going to be part of it at some point in your progression. But for many people, if you're feeling like it's too much for your body right now, it's because there's been so much muscle inhibition, so much compensation, so much muscles overworking for so long that it's just you're just farther down this perpetual downward spiral. So how can you find somebody to help you out from a muscle activation techniques perspective? Well, you can definitely go to muscleactivation.com, find a practitioner in your area. If you are in the Chicagoland area or are willing to travel to the Chicagoland area, muscle activation techniques is our specialty here at Muscle Activation Schaumburg. All you have to do to find our availability and schedule something for yourself is go to www.matschaumburg.com. There's a big green button that says Get Started. You can click that and you will see our availability and you can schedule yourself for your initial MAT consultation and assessment. So who do you know that needs to hear this episode? Who do you know that feels like over the last few months or certainly over the last few years, like their body is just getting older and older no matter what they have tried to do? Share this episode with them so they can get exposed to what is likely a primary underlying cause of why their body continues to feel older and learn what they can do about it. And while you're online, head on over to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to us and leave us a rating and review. Not only does it help people find our podcast when they're looking for information on exercise, it also helps them when they are looking for information on health. So if you found value in this conversation today, let us know by leaving us a 5-star rating and review. Well, thanks so much for tuning in. We always appreciate it. Have a fantastic week, and we'll talk with you all next week.
This podcast is for information purposes only. The statements and views on this podcast are not medical advice. This podcast, including Julie and Charlie Gates, disclaim responsibility for any possible adverse effects from the use of information contained herein. Opinions of guests are their own, and this podcast does not endorse or accept responsibility for statements made by guests. This podcast does not make any representations or warranties about guest qualifications or credibility. This podcast may contain paid endorsements or advertisements for products or services. Individuals on this podcast may have a direct or indirect financial interest in products or services referred to herein. If you think you have a medical issue, consult a licensed physician.